All right. Now, this morning, we have a very, very quick business to do, and we'll be going into details, that we have for you today, and you don't just want to miss it. How all the changes that the president has made across all the sectors of the Nigerian economy, and how these changes will eventually affect one or two things that we're going to be experiencing as a nation, and then how it trickles down to you as an individual to do your business and to live, a better life, as a citizen of this country. We have this gentleman joining us in the studio, and he's no other person, somebody that you know and you have seen a lot of times on our platform. And, he's a political analyst, he's a social commentator, he's good at what he does, he is very vast when it comes to economic matters, and he has been around for quite a while, so you can imagine how much of details and information that he has to just throw around, when we start picking these topical issues, controversial issues, and he is very opinionated, and he will just tell you exactly where he stands on this matter. I mean, he's no other person than Mr. Duke. Mr. Duke, good morning. It's a Friday, and
you are so full of praises. Unbelievable. Thank you very much.
Anyway, I mean, it's just a good way to start the show, because the moment we kick off, this is the only time, most times, that we have to laugh on the show. The moment we go into, discussing serious national matters as it borders around Nigeria, it becomes a serious matter. So it's better you just give the smile out, as we start the show. Now, Mr. Duke, we're going to be taking a total, an holistic look at the Buhari administration vis-a-vis all the changes that he has successfully made, since he was installed or he became the president of Nigeria. Now, I mean, some of these decisions are probably informed or not informed. Some of them may eventually play out positively, as it were, and some we don't really know how far it's going. One is the anti-graft, war that he has instituted, and the way is going about it. Now, when we talk about the war against corruption, we will look at it from the context of institutions that have been set up in Nigeria to help facilitate and ensure that this is properly followed up, to a logical conclusion, so that we can have virtually all our looted funds, that public office holders have stolen, and we can bring them back. And then you will also observe that the NNPC, which, news have it as at yesterday, that the bulk of corruption that has taken place in the last 6, probably 8 years, in Nigeria, especially during the last regime, actually took place using NNPC as a pipeline. 80% of our looted fund in Nigeria is actually, NNPC was actually used, to perpetrate this very bad. I mean, it's so bad that, when you begin to see figures of how much money that we have lost, it is so very mind-boggling. And then we would look at, the anti, or probably the fight against terrorism in Nigeria, and all the changes that the president has made, the election or the selection, whatever informed his choice of, the new service chiefs. And as at yesterday, he gave them an ultimatum. 3 months is the deadline that you have, and Boko Haram must be a thing of the past in Nigeria. So let's start, taking these items one after the other. But we're generally going to look at the way the president is taking his decision, especially now that he doesn't have a cabinet. He's operating like in silos. But obviously, there are some background checks that have it that he's actually working with some people that are well informed and that understood, that have a very deep understanding of what is happening in Nigeria. And there seems to be getting the president, making timely decision and on point decision and all of that. The appointment of Sergey, sitting on the anti-graft and war against corruption is another very, knowing the kind of person, it's a Sergey is, its antecedents and the records of the past and the things that people know him, to be. So we will look at all of these things. But first of all, let's take them, one after the other. First, how would you estimate, or what is your opinion about President Muhammadu Buhari and a few of his policies? Let me call it policies, because whether you like it or not, he has taken decisions and we're moving forward. Many of them have been ratified and passed, on, like the appointment of the service chiefs. They've been confirmed. They were decorated yesterday, and it's expected that, they are going to start work, immediately. So let's look at the Buhari administration since May the 29th up to date. What
you can also marry that with the economy also, CBS policies.
Okay, well, first of all, let's start by saying that I'm personally impressed by the fact that he's willing to put his reputation on the line, because he is, at this point in time, ruling and running Nigeria by himself. We have, yes, we have ministries that would normally concentrate on every aspect of our economy, our social life, our security, as you pointed out. But at this point in time, the president is taking responsibility for all of that. But you would expect that when a new leader comes into an organization, be it government or a business, changes will occur. So what we are seeing is changes coming in, if you like, placing and positioning himself in a place where he can achieve his objectives. I mean, the real policy issues are not yet out. The real movement is not there. But what he's trying to do is make sure that when he starts to carry out these initiatives, the people in place are the right people to do that. Rumors have it that he already has interviewed or interacted with 30 different people in his search for ministers, and so far, only 3 have passed.
But that rumor was debunked.
But nevertheless, it probably does have some basis.
It makes the news. So something very close to it obviously happened.
That's the most important thing. So let's start, first of all, with the NNPC reorganization. You talk about all the loot, or most of the loot that our politicians have taken away from our country in the last 6 years coming from NNPC. That is inevitable, because NNPC is essentially the paymaster of the Nigerian government. Exactly. Without NNPC, there is no money. Something like 80% of our budget is funded from oil revenue. So ultimately, if you don't get that right, you get everything else wrong automatically.
So that is the target. That is for public office holders. They know that. I mean, money definitely will come.
Absolutely.
From NNPC.
Absolutely. NNPC finances our economy. End of story. So if you don't get that right, everything else falls apart. And perhaps in a way, that is why the country experienced the kind of deterioration that we saw in the last 6 years. Because as you say, corruption in NNPC crept up a crescendo beyond what is, we've always had corruption anyway, but the level of it in the last 6 years was absolutely amazingly, high. So if you don't get it right, you get nothing else right. So he is trying to do that. And the person that he picked to run NNPC, everybody can see, is a man that has served in the industry in a capacity in one of the largest oil conglomerates in the world, i.e. ExxonMobil. And the key thing here being that when you work for a company like ExxonMobil, you are forced to do everything in line with the best international practices. And this is the key thing here. So what we expect Ibekachukwu to do here is to bring those practices into NNPC. We haven't had those in the past. Accountability and oversight, more importantly. So the changes are going to bring results eventually, but ultimately it's not the appointments itself that will bring the results, it's if you like, the system that you put in place after that, that will yield. Subsequently, revisions after revisions after revisions eventually ended up with the 13% derivation being the final outcome of resource allocation in the state. Now, we are a developing economy. If we are a fully developed economy, it becomes easy for you to look at issues like, as the guy was talking about, revising that kind of resource allocation. But Nigeria has such a development need that if you followed that formula as we had it before independence, we'd end up with virtually every resource in the country down in the south and very, very little up in the north. And at this point in time, the north of Nigeria... I
tend to disagree, though.
Because we have a concentration...
The north also, they are blessed with abundant solid mineral resources, which we still have good value in international markets.
In comparison with all
agriculture, for example, now. Agriculture,
when you talk about
agriculture is in the north. Solid minerals, it's in the north also.
Yeah, Ishima,
unlike oil in the south.
Well, that's fair enough, but think of it this way. Like I said, oil accounts for 80% of the federal government expenditure. At this point in time, as we speak, when WIAC publishes results of SS3 at the end of every year, you find something like 17,000 youngsters getting 5 credits and above in Edo State or in Anambra State, and you have 600 in Gombe State. Now, if we had a system that was already developed, the kind of resources that we have in the north, like you talk about agriculture and stuff like that, would be adequately taxed. So you have tax revenue coming out of those places that can now support those parts of the country. But as it stands right now, if you do anything different from what we have right now, the North will get further disadvantaged. And we've got to think in terms of this. And this is the honest truth. You've got to think in terms of this. That is to say that Nigeria has to develop uniformly. It has to develop. If it doesn't, there will always be political tension.
I think that that what informed centralization of, or probably like you made reference to before independence, where every region is expected to largesse, as it were, in quote, from whatever they have within the region. Now, it is centralized. It's a different ball game today. Government in the central controls allocation, and then they appropriate, when it is necessary. This has given room to more corruption. Accordingly. My concern is just that, don't you think that any region that is blessed in a particular, in a particular human, both human and natural resources should enjoy, and then probably feed the central based on agreement. I'm just trying to see.
Yes, I get your point. I think the only thing that you can say about the current situation is that it probably was not developed in a democratic way. So it was imposed on us. So from that point of view, you could say that it is a bit faulty in that respect. But beyond that, when you asking, at the moment, let me give you an example. I read today that APC was suggesting that Osun State, Fayose, I think, received 9-point-something billion in allocation in June. If you go and check the receipt of Akwa Ibom in the same period, you probably find it's close to 20 billion. They are getting 3 times as much money. Correct. If that isn't sufficient to compensate for them having that resources, then they are not thinking of Nigeria as one nation. And this is the key thing here. We are one nation, and we've got to support each other. The current allocation system is relatively adequate. Bear in mind, again, Rivers State...
Maybe it's politically
motivated. Yeah. But Rivers State, for instance, again, receives 3 times as much allocation as a Gombe State. And yet, Rivers State is owing salaries. So ultimately, can you imagine if you now pass the entire wealth of Nigeria, have it into Rivers State, what's going to happen to it? They'll still owe salaries. And so, in fact, the corruption in Nigeria is not at the center. For some reason, everybody seems to think that corruption in Nigeria is at the federal level only. Why don't they ask what is happening at the state level? Because the state level is where it concerns you. The federal government spends very little on me. The Lagos State spends on me because they provide me with roads, with water, with education, with health. All the things that I need as a Nigerian to survive is provided by the state. So if you are looking at probity, if you're looking at getting it right, you've got to get it right at the state first. And if the states cannot get it right and cannot be controlled, then it becomes important that the federal government has some level of control to ensure that across board, all Nigerians are looked after. That is the most important thing.
Okay. So, and then you think that Mr. President is probably aware of this, so that he can also beam his searchlight on the states,
absolutely,
and not just at the federal level.
I did say that. I said that on what's her name's on Diplomatic Info, Victor's. I did say that. At the end of the day, I'm amazed and surprised that everybody is talking about Jonathan and the federal government, when the real corruption and the real destructive corruption is at the state level. Because the federal government, all they do is share money. And if the monies that were given to the states were properly used in the first instance.
But I'm of the opinion that even when you probe the Jonathan administration, there is no way it will definitely flow down to the states that were empowered during that regime also, because most of the transactions and the monies allocated were not done in silos. They were done with some form of budgetary and disbursement to the states. Absolutely. And mind you also had, just as the PDP were in governance then, you also had APC ruling in some states. So this would trickle down to virtually every sector of the society.
Absolutely. And this, again, that's something that most people have overlooked as well. Because at the end of the day, statements coming out of the presidential palace is, we are only going to probe the central government of the last administration. But as you say, once you start the probe, everything begins to come out.
It will open up and...
Absolutely. I had a discussion yesterday with some friends of mine, and they were talking about Jonathan went to Aso Rock to beg Buhari not to probe him. I said, look, if I were Jonathan, I wouldn't do that. If I sat in front of Buhari, I say, Oga, Mr. Buhari, I was president too. So any information you have about money stolen, I have it too. So if you want to probe me, I can give you who's got all the money.
All right.
So at the end of the day, because he was the president for 5 years, for Christ's sake. Do you think he doesn't know who took Nigeria's money?
Okay.
He knows every single one of them. So he has nothing to fear. If he took money, he's going to bring it back. But he has the opportunity to also tell us who else took Nigeria's money. So,
all right, let's quickly go on a short break now. When we come back, we'll still be talking about major decisions that the president has taken ever since he assumed office, and if these decisions eventually will move Nigeria forward. We'll be right back.
So, did you like what you just saw? I know you did. It's very simple. If you want to see more, just subscribe to our channel right now.